peeps. You're listening to She's My Cherry Pie, the baking podcast from the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jessie Sheehan. I'm a baker, recipe developer, and author of 4 baking books, including Snackable Bakes. In each episode, I hang out with some of the sweetest bakers around and take a deep dive into their signature bakes. I'm so excited to be back in the studio and share brand new episodes with you for 2026. We took a little hiatus at the end of last year to recharge, and I hope you all baked up lots of delicious things over the holidays and into the new year. I know I did. For our first episode of the year, I'm thrilled to welcome Justine Doiron, the beloved content creator behind Justine Snacks, as my guest. Justine is a cook, recipe developer, and New York Times best-selling cookbook author. Her debut book, Justine Cooks, is packed with creative, inventive, plant-forward recipes that are totally approachable and home-cook friendly. With over 2 million followers on TikTok, Justine is known for her love of beans, farmers markets, and bread, and she loves to bake. In fact, baking was her first hobby. Justine joins me today to talk about her culinary journey from baking not very good cookies when she was little to baking her own gorgeous and delicious wedding cakes more recently, as well as her early days on TikTok in 2020 and more. We also chat about the epic cookie advent calendar she made over the holidays, a 4-day process that involved baking, packaging, and shipping 24 different cookies. She even included my cheesiest biscotti cookie, which I'm still not over. So thank you, Justine. Then we dive into what she calls her obsessive chocolate chip cookie behavior and what this classic cookie means to her. We get into texture, ingredient ratios, and how profoundly they impact one chocolate chip cookie versus another before Justine breaks down her Tall Rye Guy cookie recipe and explains why it holds such a special place in her heart. Just a quick note. Justine and I do discuss a few sensitive matters. Please feel free to skip ahead during that portion of the interview. And thank you to Justine for trusting all of us enough to share her story. Stay tuned for our chat. You can find today's recipe at cherrybombe.substack.com. Peeps, did you hear the news? Jubilee New York 2026 is happening on Saturday, April 25th at the Glass House in Manhattan, and tickets are on sale now. Jubilee is Cherry Bombe's annual conference celebrating women and creatives in the world of food and drink. It'll be a beautiful day of connection and community, plus delicious bites and sips. You'll meet other thoughtful food folks and be inspired by the featured speakers, panelists, and more. I had such a great time at last year's event, and I know this year's will somehow be bigger and better. Tickets are on sale now at cherrybombe.com. If you're an official Bombe Squad member or a paid Substack subscriber, be sure to use your discount code at checkout. You can find it in your inbox or on our Substack website. Head to cherrybombe.com for all the details. I hope to see you there. Let's chat with today's guest. Justine, so excited to have you on She's My Cherry Pie and to chat chocolate chip cookies with you and so much more.
I am so excited to be here. I can't believe we haven't done a pod
I
together.
know. I'm so happy that it is finally happening.
Yeah, we made it happen about cookies.
Okay, so first, I always love to ask guests about like super early or early baked good making and or baked good eating memories.
Oh, gosh. Okay, I had the biggest sweet tooth, like humongous. So I was always eating everything sweet. I do remember I didn't like cake. That's very important. Not a big cake person.
And did that last? Are you still not a cake person?
Cake is never my go-to. Like of all the desserts, it is cake and pie. This feels sacrilegious. Are the like bottom of my list, and then the very bottom of my list is like a panna cotta. Wow, I love how we're getting into that early. These are my dislikes.
Oh my God, we have to jump in.
But as a kid, baking was my preferred at-home hobby. I don't know if it was like because I was not athletic or because I liked working with my hands but was not artistic. But my creative outlet was taking a fork, making a really horrible cookie dough because it was something that I could teach myself how to do. Yep. So that has always been my like biggest baking memory. And it's so funny because I thought that meant that for the rest of my life I was going to be a baker. You know when they say baker versus cook, but the two kind of melded together and the sweet tooth has stayed.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Love.
Yeah.
Love. in researching you, and I love this so much, which is why you're the perfect person to have here.
Oh my God.
But you were really interested in baking as a kid. It was your hobby, but you grew up in a house where that hobby was not necessarily encouraged, but you did some sneaking baking. Like when your parents would like go out on date night. Will you tell us about that?
This is embarrassing because it also turned into a behavioral issue as a kid. Because my family would be like, okay, everyone, we're going out to the macaroni grill for dinner.
Yeah.
And I was so used to whenever my parents would go out for a date night, I'd be like, yes, amazing. Mom and dad are gone. I can bake cookies. I'm so excited. I can eat cookies. I can clean up the kitchen. No one will know. And so that was my habit, and my parents knew about that. But it got so bad to the point where my family would be going out for a family dinner, and I'd be like, can I just stay? I have homework. I have things to do. And it's because I wanted to bake or try a quick bread or something. And also, since my parents knew, because they'd come home, the house smelled like chocolate. Yep. And that didn't just happen. And since they knew, I started cleaning up the kitchen frantically. So they'd come home to not only a spotless kitchen that was not spotless when they left it, but a kitchen smelling like cookies. So they would always be like, Justine, stop baking.
I love that.
I know. It's so complicated because I wish that hobby of mine would have been accepted. But as I get older and older and I get closer and closer to potentially being a parent, I empathize with the fact that they just had a kid going ham on the chocolate chips once a week.
Totally. I get it that your parents were like, oh my gosh, chocolate again, my daughter, etc. But can you unpack a little bit more why that hobby, maybe particularly for your mom, was not one that she was super supportive of?
Well, I don't want to get too dark, but I've always had a body size bone structure that was larger, and that's from my dad's side of the family. And my mom's side of the family is the opposite, and she was plagued her entire life with something like incredibly pervasive in the 80s and 90s, which is knowing that your mother had a 19-inch waist and that diets are the only way that people seemed to think that you could eat, and being obsessive with that to a way that, again, as I get older and as I get like closer to my parents' age when they were raising me, like I have so much empathy and understanding for how difficult it must have been to struggle with an eating disorder while raising children.
Yep.
I realize now that my body size, which of course you're changing, you're growing, you're going through puberty, was signaling to her so many things, so many concerns, so many things that she needed to do, things she was failing at, things that she was mirroring in herself, that it turned into food was just a hugely negative thing for me to partake in, for my siblings to partake in. It's so hard when that part of the family dynamic happens, but it's all subliminal messaging.
Yep.
And so it's really difficult for me because I remember I went on my first diet at 12. And before then, that was the era of like 9 to 12 was the era where food didn't scare me. And from then on, it did.
Yeah.
And that's always really sad because that's when the hobby died. I can't blame it completely on my parents. I can't blame it on the situation. I can really understand it. And in adulthood, understanding it has been so massively helpful. But it has been a journey to kind of reconnect with baking again in a joyful way. Because our house, I was being punished for it. They went to date night and I joke about it, but they came back and they were like, it was a punishment.
Well, that's why I wanted, and I so appreciate you being open to talking about it with me. That's why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like most of the time when I'm talking about baking as a hobby and little kids, there's a lot of like, oh yeah, they let me. So I think it's so much part of your story and so much part of what makes what you do now so incredible.
Oh, thank you.
It's really true, Justine.
It has been a healing journey, and it's happened so quickly. I didn't realize how fast my healing through food and my culinary journey has happened until I really was reflecting. 2026 will do that to you. It has been massively healing, but it has also happened very, very quickly, and I'm grateful for it. When I resurface it, I'm like, wow, there was a lot there. That's why I'm making great cookies now.
Yes. I am obsessed with how, like, visually, I know you might say, oh, I'm not a visual, I don't know how you describe yourself, but I see you as super creative and artistic.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Everything is so beautiful to look at, et cetera, et cetera. Were those any of your hobbies, like when you were little?
Okay, this is so interesting. I was a writer.
Oh.
I was always really creative, but I was writing stories. I was telling stories. that was my creative outlet to the point where my parents thought I was going to be a journalist or a lawyer.
Yeah.
I was very verbal, big reader, big writer. And that's how I started my career in public relations. I was reading everything, and that's kind of the prerequisite for that job. What I find so interesting, and what I tell people, and nobody believes me, is in 2020, when I started this job, I was not a visual person, but I had this unfailing belief that my brain could rewire itself in any way.
Yeah.
So I started learning visual skills. I started practicing daily because I had to. Got to go on that TikTok grind. It's so funny to talk about now. But I started practicing daily. I have photos. I was looking at them the other day of my 2020 food styling.
Oh my gosh.
It was something else. But I think just through brain plasticity, not to get too scientific, I rewired some of my neurons to fire better on the creative side. But in that, I have lost a lot of my verbal skills. And I'm mad about it. No, I loved writing my first book, but it was difficult for me, which is so crazy because writing used to be my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And even now, I have a lot of friends who are writing their fiction novels or returning to literature in a way. And I'm like, I have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
I want to be visual for the rest of my life.
We're going to talk about that when we talk about the book. I'll just say it now. I love the writing in the book.
Thank you.
It's so good, Justine. And I had a question about did you know you could write? But obviously you did.
I had faith that I could write. Nobody writes a book alone. I had Alex Beggs as my edit second pass.
And Alex writes our baking newsletter. She's My Cherry Pie.
I love
Alex.
She has the best voice ever.
Yes.
She's hilarious.
She is so good.
And so I would always send her everything. And then sometimes a head note, I would write 3 sentences and be like, I hate this. Can you help? So she definitely eased me through it.
Yep.
But it was important to me to pen to paper the book.
Yeah. Totally. So you ended up going to Cornell's School of Hospitality. Mm-hmm. I read this and I love it so much you need to tell everyone that I believe going to Cornell was inspired by your job at the zoo.
Yeah. I had the best jobs in high school.
Oh my God.
And I have to thank my dad. He helped me get my job at the zoo.
Oh.
Or maybe it was my grandparents. My grandparents were big zoo members, and so they knew somebody who knew somebody. But my job at the zoo was guest services, which is just glorified checking out the rental strollers and checking in the rental ECVs, giving away free buttons. We gave away free birthday buttons. Oh, actually, no, they were $1. Very important. So selling and giving away the buttons, and then also doing crowd control at the penguin exhibit. It was so not fun, but thinking back, it was the best job a high schooler could have because I was in air conditioning on the day I was renting out the strollers. I was in the blistering heat the day I was doing penguin crowd control. But the outdoor, there were outdoor and indoor penguins. The outdoor penguins, you could just watch, hang out with them all day. Aww. And so I loved my zoo job. And what I loved about it was I got this natural high anytime I could make somebody happy, which I feel like a lot of people do if they work in hospitality or customer service. I loved solving somebody's problem because guest services, they thought you were going to solve a problem. And I loved helping people get to where they needed to go, etc. Recommending a great restaurant. I loved that. And so as an 18-year-old with no idea what I wanted to do, I said, I'll just do guest services for the rest of my life.
I love that. It's from penguins to Justine Snacks. That's the journey. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. If you're looking for even more Cherry Bombe, we're on Substack. Head to cherrybombe.substack.com. The link is in our show notes to see what we've been up to lately. You'll find the cover stories from our recent cake issue with Lucy Fronteferrière of From Lucy, Amy Yip of Yip Studio, and Amy France. Plenty of delicious recipes, including several from She's My Cherry Pie guests, updates on Cherry Bombe events like Jubilee and our monthly member meetings, and so much more. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to our free Friday newsletter or our free Saturday baking newsletter, which takes a deep dive into each week's episode. Again, that's cherrybombe.substack.com. Now back to our guest. You graduated and you ended up working in PR. And I know you had different PR jobs, I think, but were the PR jobs sort of related to hospitality, or was it something that you found and did and ended up liking?
Yeah. In all honesty, the way that I got into my career was just needing a job and taking a job, and then luckily working hard enough to make those jobs stuff that I was interested in. So the first job I ever got out of college was working as an assistant at a talent agency. People cycle through that job really quickly because you're making $12 an hour. Then I was in PR for alcohol brands, which I thought related to my degree. And I loved writing. And then I was in PR at ABC News, which is what I was interested in. And then I was in PR at Discovery Networks, which is what I was interested in, had work-life balance, which is very important. And I honestly give that job so much credit. It's so funny. I was going through this fraught decision to leave and do a job at MSNBC, which I was really excited about, or stay at Discovery. And this was right before the pandemic. And nobody knows this part of my story. Ooh. Breaking news. I was just so torn up over the decision because I knew if I were to go to MSNBC, I would work harder than I ever would have in my life and I would have been more fulfilled. But if I stayed at Discovery, I would have had work-life balance and been able to pursue my interests. And then the pandemic hit and I was so grateful because I wouldn't be where I am today if I had left to go to MSNBC.
Isn't that amazing to think about?
I just feel like the universe was protecting me.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. I also read that sort of during this period of time, you did start to play around with some dessert recipes and into flavor building, and it was sort of becoming a hobby, maybe baking and cooking while you were doing PR.
Yeah, so I really went through the highest levels of my eating disorder in college. I feel like that's very common among young women. Out of college, I went through my highest levels of healing, which was really nice.
Great.
And when that happened, I don't know if it was subconsciously or instinctively, I just felt drawn back to baking. It was like a decade later coming back to what I loved. And so the reason I started doing it is, one, I wanted to learn. I remember baking all these recipes from cookbooks that I'd found, like people's blogs. I was really in that era, and that was like 2018, 2019 when I was in PR. And it is an expensive hobby, and I was still making like $40,000, $50,000 a year. So I was not going crazy, but I was starting to bake bread. I was starting to take all the skills I had accumulated over the years and make them work for me, play with flavors. And then I started a YouTube channel.
I knew that. I was going to ask you about that.
Wow, how'd you find that?
I don't even, I need to put footnotes to every piece because I often will find things and then I can't even go back and find them.
I think that YouTube channel is still somewhere.
Baking YouTube channel is what I discovered.
Yeah, so I did. In 2019, I taught myself how to video edit. I taught myself how to film. It's because my husband was working night shift, so I never saw him. So I had nothing to do. I lived far from all my friends. I did have friends, but I had nothing to do. And so I really started that as my hobby. And I was baking like the BuzzFeed Tasty Brownies and reviewing them. I was just making silly little videos. It was the first time it was all BuzzFeed Tasty, which is so funny.
That's all Vaughn. Vreeland, because I think at that period of time he was there.
Then I'm spiritually connected to him.
Yes, you are.
More than he knows.
Yeah.
But I just remember making all those recipes and filming them and having the best time getting 2 views on YouTube.
Oh my God.
And I think that, though, was good. I mean, I shuttered it. Apparently not, since it's somewhere. But I think it was the precursor.
All right, so 2020 happens. Justine Snacks is born. I love that it was a joke name based on the fact that people would say, like, she's a snack.
Yeah.
Love. Hilarious.
See, you love it.
Yeah.
It is my career.
You're less enthusiastic.
And I'm in my 30s now. No, I love it.
Yeah. The story goes that you just kind of were exploring TikTok during the pandemic because you knew your boss would want you to have checked it out so that perhaps you guys could use it back at work.
Yeah.
And also I read that you chose food content because it was a great way you didn't have to show your face and you didn't want your boss to see you on.
Yeah. I didn't have to show my face. I could make treats because it was the pandemic.
Yep.
And I was already doing it.
Yeah.
It was already my interest. And when I say interest, I'm using the term so loosely because I'm very frugal. I was very practical. So like my hobbies, I wasn't making a croquembouche.
No.
I was making like little crescent rolls and having a great time.
Yeah. And then I read somewhere that you started as a health food blogger. But does that kind of more mean that when you first started on social, your food was more health? I hate using that word because we all believe that everything in moderation can be a healthy way.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean, like food that was less about refined sugar.
Yeah. I think that there are stages to recovering from an eating disorder. And it has taken me a long time to grapple with the fact that that's what I had. Because a lot of times I say, oh, I wasn't that sick or I wasn't that. like disordered. But I did struggle from 13 to 23 with something pretty significant. And the stages always rely on how comfortable you feel with food. And so my first step was still keeping a very tight grip on my body. It wasn't designed to be the size that it was. By doing that, I was really conscious of how much cardio I was doing. I was eating oat flour brownies because I thought they were better. I was eating mostly vegan because that was the messaging at the time. All of these things I don't mind. All of these things I still do. But for me to feel safe eating like normally and healthier than I had been, that was the level I was at. So in 2019, 2020, that was still the food I was eating. That was still the food I was making. So naturally, I just was making riffs on that, I mean, everything on TikTok is to ignite some fire. So I was making avocado brownies. I was trying to start a conversation.
The blueberry cookies, I made them.
Those were great.
Yeah, those are really good.
Unfortunately, those do need vegan butter to stay that blue. Not unfortunately, but
Yep.
But it was a vegan cookie because I thought in my head, oh, I'm mostly plant-based. And that was, for me, restrictive. For other people, it's not.
Yep.
So when I was a health food blogger, quote unquote, I was aspiring to be like the smoothie bowl, matcha LA girls, which is never me. I'm so Brooklyn coded, it hurts. And so that was what I was. And easing out of the vegan, gluten-free demographic was really difficult. It's like retraining your audience.
Yeah.
But I just had to be like, that's not me, because that was my middling stage of recovery. And now it's really nice to realize how far I've come.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about definitely way back when, like when I first discovered you, and maybe I think less so now. There were so many personal stories. How did that, and I know you've said, I realize I don't need to tap dance for these people anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't need to do this in a lab. But anyway, I'm bearing the lead. But tell us about sort of how the storytelling started.
Yeah.
And then your need to sort of say, you know what, guys, I'm just making a brownie today.
Yeah.
There isn't a story here.
So the first, wow.
I know, is that too much?
No,
Yeah,
I love
Yeah.
this question because I have evolved, and everybody in this job has to evolve.
Yes.
But the first story I ever told was making a sandwich, and it was replying to a comment saying, this isn't healthy. And I was saying, I used to have a really bad relationship with food. To me, this is healthy. It was a little preachy. It was a little kind of doing the talking points of body positivity that maybe at that time myself didn't believe. But I saw that people wanted to connect.
Yeah.
And I think that is a through point of social media, because we talk a lot about how people feel better off social media. But why do we keep coming back? And it's not because the algorithms are addicting, although they are. The connection is really addicting. And the keeping tabs with people you've never met is really addicting. But that was the first story I told. And then I am fully transparent about this. I was learning how to finesse my skill, my craft, my voice in food on the job.
Yep.
Like 2020 to 2022 was absolutely a crash course. It happened so fast because then my book started in 2023. So all of this was really smushed together in a timeline. But through that time, I didn't feel like my food could stand on its own 2 feet. I loved the recipe, but I didn't know how to communicate how good it was. Or it wasn't super beautiful because I was still learning. And so I then would attach stories to it because I wanted people to connect with that video. And that was because sometimes I did have stories that were very potent and poignant and things I wanted to say that genuinely attached with a recipe. For example, like honey nut congee, talking about how I grew up in Hong Kong, that just fit. So the stories that I always felt fit were, of course, the ones that did best. But then I thought everything needed a story. And that, I think, lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because everything felt fraud. And then it was in 2023 that I was like, when a story feels good or when something funny feels right, I have a story video coming up. Everybody hold on. But when something feels easy to talk about, that's when that should be a video. But today I posted a chicken noodle soup, and it was it was a vegetarian chicken noodle soup.
Yeah.
And did it do as well as the ones where I'm yapping? Yeah, tap dancing?
Yeah.
No, but was it authentic to what I am trying to provide and how I'm trying to connect? Absolutely.
I love that. That makes so much sense. All right. I'm dying to talk about your book because I love it so much. Justine Cooks, Recipes, Mostly Plants for Finding Your Way into the Kitchen, New York Times bestseller. So well written. I know I already said this. I love your writing. Tell us just a little bit for I don't know if there are any humans out there who this applies to, but somebody who has not seen your book or looked through it. Tell me about what we find.
It's the most beautiful book in the whole wide world.
That's what you find.
My pants are on the cover. So no, I moved away from plant-based cooking, but it still is very plant-forward, very plant-based with a healthy dose of good fats, butter, exciting flavors, interesting combinations. That's what really excited me about the book. My first book was very much a debut book. You only get one. And it was like, let me show you what I can do. Let me show you how creative I can be and that you will enjoy it too. And I'm glad that it's been received so well because that's what I set out to do. But yeah, I had a spell where I fell out of love with it.
Yeah.
And I've been cooking from it lately. And I'm like, it's just so healthy, but not like wholesome.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Alrighty. Before we jump into chocolate chip cookies, please tell us about the Advent calendar cookie boxes.
Okay.
They were incredible. Yeah, take a deep breath.
This is the story of how I died.
Yeah. Tell us.
I'm so glad you liked them.
Yes.
It came to me on a whim. Do you know the Bombe jam ad?
Of course.
So for a few years ago, everybody got the jam advent calendar. And everybody was rating them and everybody was having a horrible time.
Yep.
And I was like, this is so cool. You have an edible gift every day and everyone's having a horrible time. How dare you? But that's the whole point. People like reviews. So I said, how fun would it be to open up a cookie every day? Because cookie swaps, you end up with like 20 cookies. When you're going to eat them all, they go a little stale. So I thought that would be fun. And in my mind, Jessie, I'm fresh coming off of my wedding cakes. And I was like,
Justine.
that's fine.
Yeah.
And baking cookies takes me what, like an hour and a half per batch?
Yeah.
Easy. I'll schedule it. Oh.
Harder than the cakes for the wedding?
Harder than the cakes because there were more moving parts.
Yeah.
So the cakes is like I had to make 8 batches of frosting, 4 different types of cakes. All the cakes could bake at the same time. So cakes was really just stress management, where cookie advent calendar was space management.
Yeah.
If I do it again, I am going to do 24 cookies though, because it's very fulfilling.
Yeah.
But it was managing my space, managing my time. It was just strenuous. There was one day that was a 15-hour day.
Wow.
And that, I mean, I had fun.
But
Yeah,
for those who have not seen, Justine documented it beautifully. I didn't look on TikTok, but I looked on Instagram, and you need to go look at it because it's incredible, like including her shopping bags, like when she's shopping for the ingredients, which I loved.
oh my God, I'm ordering from Instacart from now on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the feeling of euphoria when I had packaged up all the cookies and just had to slot them into boxes was great. And then for everybody listening at home, people would freeze the box, take out a cookie at least 3 hours before they wanted to eat it. And it thawed so well. I was so thrilled.
Would you leave those little instructions to everyone?
Yeah. So on top of every box was a little sticker that said freeze me and then take the cookie out the night before to thaw.
Oh my gosh. I love.
And it's fun because people would text me their reviews and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
And the cookie, day 7, I'll never forget, was the only savory cookie.
Oh.
And I now know that I need to have at least 2 savory cookies.
Yeah.
It was such a hit.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And just one more thing before we jump into the chocolate chip cookies. Honey, you baked your own wedding cakes. You are an insane person. Just tell me everything. I can't even speak.
Okay.
I'm like speechless.
Going back to the through line of maybe I've just always been drawn back to baking.
Yes.
When I got engaged and when I was planning the wedding, I didn't even think about getting somebody to make my cake. I don't know why I wasn't thinking of it. I just assumed I was going to do it. I didn't know what I was going to do. And then I started thinking, I should probably offload this. And I just couldn't envision how a tiered cake would look.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like me. I didn't feel like it would tell a story. I didn't feel like it would be like us.
Yeah.
And then I realized that they're $5,000.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
they can range. New York City's crazy.
Yeah.
So I decided to come up with the idea of doing layered cakes, but just all single tier.
Yep.
Doing 4 of them. And I was going to do something old, something new, something borrowed, and then something tiramisu. Thank the Lord for giving me that idea, because otherwise I wouldn't have known what flavors to do. So the something old was my favorite cake, and that was taking the pecan pies that Eric's family, my husband, makes every year for the holidays and that I've learned from his mother. So taking 2 of those pecan pies and layering them between the chocolate cakes that I baked Eric for his 30th birthday.
Oh.
So that was really fun and like death by chocolate.
Yeah.
And then the something new was a coconut cake with a mango yuzu curd and a cream cheese frosting. Oh, and then I made these. This is from Natasha Pickowitz's book, More Than Cake. There's a rice flour coconut salty coconut oil crumble. It tastes like a coffee cake crumble, but coconut. And we put that between every layer.
Yum.
Oh, so good. And then something borrowed, I borrowed my sister's wedding cake flavor. So it was hummingbird cake.
Aww.
So much fun to make. It's just banana bread in a cake. And instead of putting the pineapple in it, I did like pineapple layers.
Yeah.
And then the tiramisu was just a creme fraiche tiramisu.
Oh my gosh, honey.
Also, the thing is, when you're making your own wedding cake, everybody tells me they're beautiful, and I try to take the compliment. But when you're making your own wedding cake, the pressure is off because people are like, oh, you're making your own wedding cake.
Yeah.
I could have done anything.
And people would be so...
And people would have loved it.
Yeah.
And then also, what I loved is that every wedding I've been to, nobody really eats the cake. But at my wedding, people were doing like taste tests up for TikTok.
Oh.
And I was like, please don't post that. No, they were allowed to post it. Everybody was like, we conquered all 4 cakes. And it was fun to make it a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, to make it a thing.
I love, love, love. See, you're a baker.
Yeah, something's got me drawn to it.
Something as you go on. All right, chocolate chip cookies. So in your book, you tell us that in like 2023, you made this decision to answer the question, what makes a perfect chocolate chip cookie?
Yeah.
And you basically started breaking down, famous chocolate chip cookie recipes into percentages. So couple of questions just before we get into all of your research and what you discovered. First of all, were you already working on the book, so you knew this would be part of the book? Or was it just a crazy Justine moment where you're like, whether I'm writing a book or not, I need the answer to this?
So I had done it before. And in my early TikTok days, still 2020, I was baking chocolate chip cookies. And since not a lot of people were on the app, they were going super viral. And one of them was a slandering the Nestle Toll House. Chocolate chip cookie, which I stand by to this day. And if somebody's going to come in the comments of this podcast and tell me that it's the best chocolate chip cookie in the world, I'm going to let you have it, but I think it's not.
Yeah.
And I stand by that.
Yep.
Anyway, so I had done it before, and then as I was writing the book and I was making the brown butter cookie, which took me so much time, and to date I still think is better at 75 grams than 56 grams, but that's apparently too big for people.
Yep.
Whatever. That one was really tough for me, so I decided to do the percentages to see where I was going wrong. And then I had them, and I had my book manuscript, and I asked my editor, can I just put this in here?
Yeah.
Because nerds love it. I love it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a nerd,
and
I love it. And I love chocolate chip cookies. So what I love is you write that, like, you didn't want to do a chart where, like, these are the best cookies. So it was more about picking popular cookies, types of cookies that you love, whether it's thin and crispy or something that's more Levain cookie-like, and figuring out what the percentages of the ingredients that made each one different from each other.
Yeah.
And I loved this. You say that you realized that ingredient percentages turned out to be more important than technique, which surprised me because I'm obsessed with this idea of melted butter versus soft. Like, I always think of technique being so important in the outcome of the cookie and whether I'll like it or not. But that was not your experience.
Not my experience, but I do think that melted butter is a humongous difference maker.
Yes.
But like softened versus kind of hard and you whip it until it's softened didn't matter that much. Other people have done crazy reverse creaming techniques.
Cookies, yeah.
Which I was making this one recipe on the internet that was promising me like a Tate-style crispiness because of the reverse creaming. And I tried it, and it was the same as if I had just made it the same way.
Yep.
And it's because of the ratios.
Yep. So in this chart, which is incredible, and I love that you start with the Nestle Classic because that's one we're all going to know. Like, oh, that's what that column tastes like. In our heads, we know. So you're comparing Nestle Classic cookie to sort of the best recipes on the internet.
Yeah, which those were another average. So those are 5.
I'm sure.
Averaged.
To thin and crispies, kind of like a Tate.
Yeah.
To tall and cakey, kind of like Levain. And then to your favorite, not that you don't love the rye cookies that we're going to discuss, because I know you love all your cookie babies. But one of your favorites, which is a cookie in which you're substituting some sour cream for an egg.
Yes.
So first question, how did you determine those 5 best cookies on the internet?
I didn't well, interesting. I was going by number, because I work in blogging.
Yeah.
I was going by what blogs rank first,
Yep.
which you can find out through SEMrush, because based off of your cookies and who's searching, what cookie recipes that will show up in your Google first is going to be different than what shows up in other people's. Case in point, when I Google something, my recipe shows up first because it knows that I like to see that. But so that's how I analyzed I think it was 5 best chocolate chip cookies. Nestle Toll House, of course. The Tall and Cakeys, I did a hybrid mix of another 5 recipes. And that was based off of, I did cook through them to make sure that they delivered on the results. And then I just averaged everything out. And I do regret putting the sour cream cookie comparison in there. I didn't know that would be as hard of a sell. How I want to explain it to people is if you see a cookie recipe from me and there's an addition like pumpkin or banana, etc., it usually follows the same method as the sour cream cookie. Sub the sour cream for mashed pumpkin. Sub the sour cream for mashed banana. So that's why I put that in there, because I was like, this is the cookie formula that I typically go for. And I think the sour cream is delicious. So I will stand by it. But that's how I made those analyses.
I love it. In the chart, you have like flour, salt, baking powder. So I just wanted to go through those ingredients to talk a little bit about. I thought this was so interesting. Your favorite cookie that you're comparing to these other ones had much more flour, as much as the Tall and Cakey. Is that because your favorite is levain-ish?
So I still to date. No, well, that one comes out very thin.
That's what I thought. So I thought that was so interesting that it has so much flour.
Same.
Yeah.
And I think it's a mixture of 2 things. So even over Christmas, we were at an Airbnb and I wanted to make chocolate chip cookies and I was like, oh, I'll make that recipe. And I was like, I'll take out 20 grams of flour. Like that can't be right. And then the cookies were like puddles. So
fascinating.
I was mad at myself, and then I was like, I should have just followed the recipe. Who'd have thought? But that one has a lot of fat from the sour cream, which obviously helps cookies spread. But then I also think what people ignore a lot, which I find so funny, is that sugar is one of the highest indicators of how much a cookie will spread. Sugar, obviously, as a wet ingredient, and when you melt it on the stove, it turns liquid, so it turns liquid in the oven. So I think there is a high level of sugar and fat to counter that flour, so the flour is almost like needed.
I got you. It's so interesting. I also thought it was interesting, the salt content, because yours has a little more salt than the Nestle's, but I would have thought, I don't know, I would have thought it would be saltier.
Interesting. Okay, well, this is great because we're pointing out Nestle's number one flaw. Nestle's flaws are too much baking soda and not enough salt.
Yes.
And also, I do like a salty cookie, but I don't really like it overboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I just didn't know if there was a salt thought that came into that. I also loved learning that your favorite cookie, and at least in this, arrangement, calls for baking powder, which blew my mind. Yeah. Your cookie only had a teeny bit less than the Tall and Cakey, which would have been the levain version. Is the baking powder necessary because it's the only way you're going to get all of that extra flour to lift? And you don't have soda. I'm bearing the lead, but there's no soda. Talk to me about that.
Okay, so this might signal that I'm a little crazy.
Yeah, no.
But I can taste baking soda. Baking powder, of course, because it has the activator, and then, of course, it has the anti-caking. From baking powder, I don't taste the acrid flavor. And it was funny, I didn't realize that until I was reading through it the other day, and I was like, wow, you had such a complex, because now I use baking soda all the time.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Because baking soda does have the power from being straight sodium bicarbonate.
Yep.
What I like about baking powder, even though it does mean you have to use 4 times the amount, is that you are getting that guaranteed activation.
Yeah. And then what about browning? Because I think of soda in a cookie as not only being lift, but also color.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have experienced that recently with my sticky toffee cookies.
Yep.
Those are currently the most divisive cookies on the internet, slay. But I used baking soda to help with browning because I wasn't getting it.
Yep.
And then some bakers are not getting any browning at all.
Yeah.
So I might go back to their comment and tell them that they're doing baking powder. And that they're wrong.
That's so interesting. I also loved that yours, again, in this chart, when you're comparing, has the most butter, which is to your point about the flour. They're sort of helping each other.
Yeah. See, this is why the chart for me was helpful.
Yeah.
But when I think of it from a user perspective, it's probably not. Because everything is so contingent on having a control.
Yes.
And what is the control when there are 8 ingredients?
Yeah, but I disagree. I think it's really helpful because I love understanding when it's such an iconic baked good as the chocolate chip cookie. I love understanding how each of these things affects it and being able to have categories like thin and crispy. I mean, it's simple. It's best, thin and crispy, tall and cakey. I find that it's fantastic, honey. I'm obsessed with it. I want a T-shirt with Justine's
data
chart. Yeah, I love data. That will be my T-shirt. Also thought this was interesting about you have the tiniest amount of brown sugar. Comparatively, your cookie is a little heavy on granulated, less on brown, which I thought was interesting because I feel like so many of us are like, brown sugar, like it's moist and it gives caramel flavors.
Well, brown sugar is the brown butter of sugars. And that's how I use it in cooking and salad dressings, etc. Oh, I just made a salad dressing that has brown sugar in it.
Ooh,
very exciting.
Yum.
As you can see, I go back and forth between savory and baking. But I use white sugar because white sugar spreads more, where brown sugar I do think is important because you have the acid so that it reacts to anything.
Yep.
I mean, that doesn't apply here. But I like granulated sugar because it helps the cookie get flat.
Yeah.
And I think in the tall and cakey, it's either 50-50 or it's a higher brown sugar.
Yeah. For the brown sugar, all I had written is yours had the tiniest amount comparatively.
Yeah.
And then also the cookie is so interesting to me because you're using sour cream instead of an egg, which I thought was...
I love it.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. An egg is an emulsifier and a structure builder.
Yep.
But not really much else.
Yep.
And have you ever had a chocolate chip cookie that's like over-egged?
Yes.
It's weird, right?
Yeah, you can taste it.
Yeah, and going through tests, because I was testing one egg white, one egg yolk, and sometimes I do the one egg yolk and one egg, and it's not cakey, but it's not gummy. It's hard to explain. So in my recipe developing career, I've always been curious about what I can swap in for the egg to make a transformative cookie that might take 3 or 4 other tweaks and turn into something really magical.
Yeah.
And so, like I said earlier, I've done it with countless types of cookies, but the sour cream just stands out in my brain as something so uniquely delightful because you have this tanginess, like a sour cream coffee cake. You have this melt in your mouth texture, this crispy on the outside bite because of all the fat, but it's perfectly circular. And going back to baking powder, white sugar, it is a very white, pale cookie.
Yeah.
She's not giving much, but then you bite in and you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is a completely unique experience.
You know, my favorite pie dough, I substitute sour cream for the water.
Yum.
It is incredible,
What?
Justine, and it is so easy to work with. You have got to try it.
Oh, I do. Okay, is it butter, sour cream?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's, I mean, you can look at my recipe is on my site, but yes, it's just literally no cold water, just cold sour cream.
You're rocking my world.
It's so good, honey.
That's correct.
So this is just to say team sour cream. Team
Also,
sour cream.
did you see I just got your food processor?
Yay!
So do you make the pie crust in your food processor?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in business.
Yay! And then finally, I thought this was super interesting. Yours actually has the smallest amount of chocolate comparatively. And I can really relate to that because I adore the dough of a chocolate chip cookie. I don't like it when every bite is melted chocolate everywhere.
You know what I've realized my ideal chocolate chip cookie is? You know the guitarred wafers?
Yes.
Just like a ball of dough and 3 wafers.
And you're done.
And then I can control my bite. I can control what I have.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't do a lot of chocolate, and sometimes it's chopped into slivers because I also find that lovely.
Yep, me too.
But sometimes I'm eating a chocolate chip cookie and I'm not a chocoholic. My husband is. And I'm like, this was just chocolate held together by something.
That's not my fave.
Yeah.
All right, before we jump into Tall Rye Guy, I loved this kind of texture hack of yours whereby you're explaining that an underdone cookie is a done cookie. Can you just quickly unpack for the listeners?
Yeah, this is bad. My friends don't allow me in their houses while they're baking anymore. I will pull out your cookie tray when you're like, that looks not done.
Yeah.
So, and that's not true. 2 minutes before you normally pull out your cookie sheet, I just think you have to because that pan is hot. The air is usually warm. And that's when the cookies are malleable, so you can make them beautiful. And then the residual heat cooks them.
Love.
I was also, as a kid, eating the chocolate chip cookies that were the worst.
Yep.
It was the Nestle recipe. Anytime my grandma or mom made them, they were a day later, stale but firm.
Honey, I love that you're bringing this up because I'm actually working on a cookie book. And I really believe, and I'm going to share this with all my readers when my book comes out, if you're going to somebody's house for dinner, you want to bring them cookies, bring the dough balls and bake them for them.
Oh,
you have to eat cookies warm and you have to eat cookies immediate. I just really believe in the immediacy of the experience.
Oh, 100%. I saw it on social media. I saw a girl who was giving away wrapped or like vacuum sealed cookie dough in the cookie exchanges at Christmas because she was like, nobody wants my dry cookies.
She's so right.
Yeah.
She's so right.
But with chocolate chip, especially.
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to eat any of my cookies the second day.
Yeah. But I found the underbaking like at least salvages them.
It helps. And I'm a big believer. Every recipe I write for a cake, I want it to have moist crumbs when you put in your tester. Everything, I feel like.
So, wow, I wish we had a whole other episode to talk about cake.
Oh, me too.
Because me as a not cake liker making my wedding cakes, I was like, okay, they need to be moist and they need to be dense.
Yes.
Which feels like the antithesis of a chiffon cake.
Yep, but still, I get you. All right, Tall Rye Guy.
Yes.
Described as, love this, a tall, thick rye cookie that's a nutty cousin to those made famous by Levain Bakery. Love. So first things first, we are going to brown some salted butter, room temperature butter. Why salted?
Oh, I am a salted butter devotee. I'm getting a little pressured by outside sources. I'm getting yelled at too much. But my personal opinion is, when have you ever tried salted butter on toast or whatever and been like, oh, that's too salty? Right. No, you've been like, oh, that tastes like butter. Yep. So I have a lot of chef friends who say, oh, well, we buy unsalted butter obviously in bulk because it's fresher, because salted butter is used as a preservative. I think as a home cook, I always use salted butter because it's flavor reassurance for me.
I love it.
And I write my recipes accordingly.
I love it. So we're going to brown it and set it aside in a small bowl to cool while we continue with the recipe. But can you briefly tell us your browning butter technique?
Oh, yeah. I like a 10-inch pan.
Yep.
And I like to keep an eye on it.
Like a skillet situation as opposed to something with high sides?
Skillet situation because it goes faster.
Ah, nice.
But you do have to babysit it.
Yep.
So that is my biggest frustration. Also, have you found that different butters brown differently?
Yes, of course. Yes, totally.
That is always the biggest craziness to me.
Yep.
Because some butters I can leave unattended for 3 minutes and then they're brown.
Yep.
Others are wreaking havoc.
Yeah.
So that is my technique, is to make it not wreak havoc.
But I also love the skillet is really smart. And the fact that it goes faster excites my easy peasy baking mind. So in the bowl of a stand mixer, we're going to beat together additional room temperature salted butter, dark brown sugar, which in this cookie is a little more traditional in the sense of it's a little bit more than the granulated. I also love that you are using dark. I don't know where dark brown sugar has been all my life, but I'm using it practically exclusively in my new cookie book.
Oh, yeah.
Because why mess with light when you can have dark?
Exactly.
And then granulated sugar, vanilla bean paste. So first question, is there a favorite brand? And then also, I kind of know the answer, but why not just vanilla extract?
Okay, favorite brand, I do really gravitate towards what is available at my store.
Yeah.
So vanilla bean paste is hard to find. I've heard Walmart has it, which is great. But you probably know what I'm talking about, the white tube.
Yep.
But I chose vanilla bean paste because I like the flecks of vanilla in it. It's also sweeter. It has sugar in it, right?
Yeah.
And so I felt like we were getting the same punch for half the cost. And also, since it is a paste and not a liquid, it does help make the dough hold a little bit better.
Yep. So we're going to beat all of those ingredients together for like 2 to 3 minutes until light and fluffy. Is there a speed? Are we like on medium speed at this point?
Medium.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we're going to pour in the brown butter, which at this point might be room temp, or it might still be a little bit warm, but it's not going to screw anything up.
It's not going to screw anything up. It's actually really fun to watch it. We're already at a whipped state, but then it goes like whipped.
Yeah. And why do you like both? Both the brown and why not brown all the butter?
Oh, well, so I'm sure you guys have talked about this on the pod. You lose moisture when you brown butter. So I did want to have some of that moisture so that the interior of these cookies stay really soft.
Yep.
Also, softened butter helps give this process a lot more structure without, let's say we browned all the butter, then you'd have to let it cool, which is everybody's least favorite task.
Absolutely the worst. We poured in our brown butter. We'll mix on medium-high for like another 2 minutes. Then we're going to add 1 large egg. We'll mix on medium-high for another minute or so. I thought this was really interesting because this is something I think about a lot when I'm writing recipes. You didn't write room temperature egg. Do you feel like it doesn't matter?
Yeah. Maybe this will ease your easy peasy baking brain.
Yeah.
But I have never started a baking project and been like, oh, gotta get my egg.
Yeah.
I've always just been like, it's never ruined a cookie for me.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
Yeah.
I'm on the fence about it because people like to see it and editors like to see it when they're editing your recipes. Sometimes it can make something a little curdly for a moment or change something, but it never impacts in the end.
I agree. And then it makes me sometimes worry, like, do I not care enough? Because people will be like, should the egg be room temperature? And I'm like, and then I'm like, I should care.
Yeah. No, I love that. So we'll mix in the egg, and then we're going to add some all-purpose flour. Do you have a favorite brand?
I do. Hi, King Arthur. You're the best.
We're going to add some AP flour, some dark rye flavor. So some questions. Is there a brand you like? What's it adding, and where are we getting it?
Okay, so dark rye flour is usually I get mine from Bob's Red Mill.
Okay.
So it comes in the smaller bags, and wow, is it great. So it's not only great to add to sourdoughs or like if you're into bread baking, it totally changes the profile of your bread, but also a cookie. It not only gives a different type of structure than all-purpose flour. So if I was doing a full all-purpose cookie, which a ton of people have with this recipe and they do well, but if I was doing a full all-purpose cookie, the spread would be different.
Yeah.
And so the rye flour not only makes the cookie darker, but it gives this flavor that mixed with the vanilla bean paste and the dark brown sugar is so earthy in a way that doesn't feel like it's trying too hard or that it's reminiscent of an oatmeal cookie or that it's like too flogged up in that darkness. Instead, it's just this really nice, unique note.
Love. I need to get on it. And then we'll add some baking powder, which we discussed.
Yes.
I have a note like, so unusual in a chocolate chip cookie. But I understand. Kosher salt.
Yeah.
And then we'll mix on low until just combined. We're going to chop up some semi-sweet chocolate and some milk chocolate, which I thought was so interesting.
Yeah.
If I was thinking Justine cookie, I would think a bittersweet. Yes.
Yeah.
But can I just say that if I was thinking a Jessie cookie, I would do this.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
So I had to throw everyone a bone.
Yeah.
No, the brownest butter darkest chocolate cookie, a different cookie from the book, is like dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Which I love. And nobody makes it with dark chocolate, which I knew.
Yeah.
So this one I wanted to appease. You know, like the people who are just like, I want a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that. And is there a favorite brand for the milk and the semi-sweet?
I love, I can't pronounce
Guittard.
it. Guittard.
Yep.
Just universally melts beautifully.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful. Costs half a leg and an arm.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Do you ever buy chips?
I do when I have to, but here's the thing. Chips, especially with the way that cocoa powder is going in the market, chips are so expensive too.
Yeah, that it's like at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'll just buy bars.
Yeah. I mean, bar chocolate just melts so nicely. We'll mix our chocolate into the dough. We're going to portion the dough into 6 cookies. We're going to chill. So interesting. Chill for 1 to 6 hours. So a couple of questions. So first, do you have a preference between 1 and 6? And also, I thought it was interesting that you're not saying overnight.
Yeah, I could have. But here's my thing. Overnight indicates that you can't have this cookie on the day that you make it.
Yep.
My thought is universally disagreed with by almost every baker. I don't really believe in a cookie chill. I made a video talking about retesting a recipe, and a content creator commented like, oh, they probably didn't chill the dough. And I said, I never tell them to chill it. Or I didn't reply, but I never tell them to chill the dough. And again, a lot of people disagree with me, but I've just never had major differences. And if your only argument is that the gluten develops in the flour's hydrates, I don't think it's worth making people wait 24 hours. So that's why.
Love.
Oh, my spicy hot take.
Love.
And then 1 to 6 hours is such a choice. That I wish I could go back and be like 1 hour or more.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of just like 1 hour or whenever. They just need to be not room temperature.
I get it. Okay. And we're chilling basically, I had written this, we're chilling more to preclude spread as opposed to flavor development because don't tell anyone, listeners, but Justine and I are on the fence about that. Would you ever use the freezer to speed this up? Like, would you ever just stick the cookies in the freezer for half an hour and then...
Okay, transparently to everyone here, I have made these cookies where I just chilled them while the oven was preheating, and they've been completely fine. What this is really for is for the crust on the top.
Yeah.
So would I recommend the freezer? Would that be my preference? No, I really want them fridged because I don't want them like anywhere close to frozen. But if that's what you want to do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Love it. So we're going to position a rack in the center of the oven. We're going to bake at 425, which is high. Talk to me.
Super high. We want the outside to cook. We want the inside to cook with residual heat once it's out of the oven.
Yep. Love. So bake at 425 until the edges and the tops are golden, 8 to 11 minutes. And I love that you remind us of this hot take about underdone cookies. It's okay if the centers are slightly underdone.
Yes. And for food safety, that is essentially cooking the egg yolk to like its appropriate temperature like you would in a bain-marie. Yep.
So, okay, they can still feel slightly underdone. Is it also a visual thing? You'll kind of see that they're almost like glossier in the center, and you'll know that they're slightly underdone.
I don't think there's a visual cue outside of the golden tops. When you see how big these cookies are, you know they're not making it the whole way.
Yeah. Love. then we'll let them cool on the pan completely so they're fully set, and then we will eat them.
Yes.
Thank you so much for
you.
chatting with me today, Justine. I just want to say that you are my cherry pie.
Oh my gosh, thank you. This was so fun.
That's it for today's show. Don't forget to follow She's My Cherry Pie on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and tell your pals about us. You can find today's recipe at cherrybomb.substack.com. She's My Cherry Pie is a production of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. Our producers are Carrie Diamond, Catherine Baker, and Jenna Sadu. Thank you so much for listening to She's My Cherry Pie, and happy baking!